Hi, and welcome to the Fairy Godmothers Pod of Wisdom and Knowledge. I am Reverend Elizabeth Howell, and my co-host is...
Hi, I'm Reverend Cynthia, here once again to torment you all.
And yes, and we're doing a fine job, obviously. So welcome. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome, welcome. And if you have joining us for a second time, thank you for tuning in. Share and like us on Facebook, on
Thank you for
YouTube.
being a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, thank you. And we have a special guest in studio today. So
Yes.
yay, in studio. It's always fun to have someone come in. We love to have people call in, but it's really great to have a physical body
It
in the
is.
studio.
It is, where
And-
people can actually see who we're talking to.
Yeah. So our special guest is...
Don Antonio Qorianti, he's one of my shamanic brothers. We've gone through training together. He's a specialist in breathing and making it healthy.
Well, we need to breathe.
We do.
I mean, how many... times are getting a little tough.
Well, yeah, and then we get all stressed out
Yeah.
and we don't breathe properly. We start breathing from the top of our chest instead of our belly like babies do. And he's going to, Don Antonio here is going to help us with that.
We're going to learn to breathe. I think that's important.
And why we need to breathe.
Yeah, and why. I think that's going to be important.
Besides the fact that we turn blue.
well, yeah. But, I just went through a stressful situation a couple weeks ago, getting some surgery, and I had to breathe. I was wide awake for some just simple surgery, but I had to breathe. I was doing deep breathing while I was on the table, and they did just local anesthesia, but I did yoga most of my life, so I was doing yoga breathing so I could relax. And, it makes all the difference in the world when you're controlling your breath.
Yeah, it was like Lamaze. I use that technique from Lamaze a lot of times when I'm trying to be part of something and I need to distract myself.
And I think in today's world, I think we ignore breathing. I think we
Well,
are
it's
more...
not. It's getting to be more part of Western medicine, but not as like it used to be.
Because people go around, you can hear them, they're always up on the top of their mouth talking and breathing and whatever, right? I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll let you get a word in edgewise
Yeah.
now.
Oh, I was just waiting for my turn, Fairy Godmothers. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
let us know about yourself.
Okay, well, I'll tell you a little bit about me. So I'm a man that wears many hats. So as Sister Louie pointed out, I am a fourth level Andean priest of the Pakukuna tradition. I became initiated in that priesthood in 2021. And then in 2023, I then was initiated as a teacher of the tradition as well by Don Kerfman, our primary human teacher of the tradition. What kind of got me on this path was my own journey of healing. In 2011, I was diagnosed with COPD emphysema, and that was at stage 1 in 2011. So it wasn't too bad at that point. I was a smoker back at that point, but the doctor said it was probably from my career. And at that time, I was a heating and air conditioning technician. So I'd spend a lot of time around like really difficult things like...
A lot of dust and dirt. And
Yeah,
garbage.
new construction jobs are in basements, but then you also have things like fiberglass with insulation. There's a lot of insulation involved. Sometimes old tear-outs, there might be some asbestos involved. And then probably the most damaging thing to my lungs was working on air conditioning systems. When you replace an old system, often there'll be some leftover refrigerant oil in the system, and when you're kind of welding in new components, that will burn that off, and there'll be some residual refrigerant left in there, and this actually creates phosgene gas, which is the same thing as mustard gas. And so what this does directly is it destroys your respiratory system.
Yeah, that's why they took it off. They put it as part of the Geneva Convention. You can't do that. It's a war crime.
Yeah, well, I was having war crimes at work.
Yeah.
That was kind of what was happening.
Well, just the old style refrigerant itself was very toxic. I mean, besides the
it
catalyst.
Can be. Yeah, and then once you get it hot enough, if you burn it a little bit, then because we would try to do our best to evacuate the system properly, but the oil itself that you can't take out of the system, that itself can burn a little bit, and then that will release. It's a green gas. It smells terrible. It happened to me many times, but I didn't really have a awareness or knowledge of these things. I was very young when I started. I'm about 50 now, and I started when I was 17 being a heating and air conditioning guy. And so slowly over time, that started to degenerate my lungs. And so I ended up going in, I got checked out, and they were like, okay, this is really bad. Well, it started getting worse. So by about 2018, I was at stage 3, which according to the medical books is terminal. So going to the doctor, that's basically what they told me, and that was very disheartening to find out, like, well, now you're going to suffocate to death. Like, essentially, you're, you know, that's like kind of how it was. And I was having a hard time breathing. My lips are turning blue. And so due to all this happening, I also had lots of other issues like depression, anxiety, insomnia. And on top of that, I developed a bunch of other illnesses. So like what the medical community may call fibromyalgia. So I had like phantom pain and stiffness and all kinds of different things happening. I had hip degeneration. I had all kinds of things happening that, according to medical science, according to the medical system, are incurable. And so that was really difficult. I found myself being pretty sad, pretty upset. And then I just had like a big shift, a big change. And that's something I always tell people is, you know, rock bottom can teach you things that mountaintops never can. So that I really hit my rock bottom. You know, I remember it was a day, it was a morning that I woke up. I hadn't slept for 3 days because trying to sleep is very difficult when you can't breathe. And the wheezing and the noise and, you know, just suffering. And then all the other issues. And then I remember just laying there in bed one morning, and I just was like just defeated. And I just kind of asked this question out loud. The question was like, well, why should I continue? And when I asked that question, and I already had like a past experience having interactions with spirits and things since I was a young boy, but this is the first time something really jumped out at me and talked to me, and it was like an angelic being came to me, and it didn't really say any words to me. It was just like the contact of it trying to just changed me. Like it was like a miracle happened in that moment. And really what happened was I just became acceptant. I was just like, well, if I'm going to suffocate to death, so be it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was okay with it. And then I jumped up out of my bed, and like from that day, my whole life changed. I got up out of my bed, and I went into the kitchen. I talked to my wife and my daughter, and they were kind of looking at me and a little kind of weirded out because they knew I had a hard night, and, you know, they've been around me for a while up until that point, knew I was really suffering. And I just was alive and full of light, and I just told them, you know, everything's going to be okay. It was just with that shift, that little shift, things in my reality started to unfold. And one of the unfoldings was I started to learn about psychedelics and psychedelic treatments and things like that, which got me looking into dimethyltryptamine or DMT. And then I started to learn more about not so much the exogenous forms, but the endogenous forms, how you can access DMT in your body, through your body. And so I started to learn how the pineal gland is part of the effective part of that. I already kind of knew that. What I didn't know is that your lungs also produce DMT.
Oh, really?
I was totally unaware of that at the time. So I went and I started researching more and more, and then I came across a man who was, his name is Troy Casey. He goes by the Certified Health Nut. At that time, he was probably in his 50s or so, because we're going back about 10 years now. About 7 years, something like that. And then he was the first person that I really saw, like, I heard about breathing and the techniques of breathing or whatever, but this guy was actually showing something different. I could sense his spirit and his energy through the YouTube video I was watching. And I couldn't really breathe at the time, but something about it called to me. So I decided, okay, I'm going to try this out. And I couldn't really breathe, and it was really hard. But I noticed something. There was a shift right away. There was something that shifted, and I couldn't understand what it was yet, but it was something major and massive. Something changed. So I went and told my wife about it. And her being the wonderful person she is, she decided, like, okay, this seems kind of weird or different, but I'm going to support you. So she started doing it with me, and it started becoming so. Since that day, I have never not had a day where I didn't have a breath practice. No such thing. Doesn't exist in my life. So it started that day. And then little by little, after a couple weeks, I started to feel good. I started to feel better mentally, emotionally. I was still having a hard time breathing, but I no longer was mentally suffering. There was no longer
Oh, that
mental.
can be really huge in any healing.
Yeah. So that really started to open things up. So then I was so excited and I wanted to learn more about the breath. That's something I love to do. I love to study all the experts in the field. So I started to study experts, find experts in the field and start studying them one by one, looking at what they do. And that's what I always tell everyone to do. If you want to really learn about something, become an expert in the field. And the best way to become an expert in the field is study all the experts, but don't stick to one ideology. Let it grow within inside you. Let your own medicine grow within inside you. And essentially that's what happened. I ended up taking some courses and things. I ended up taking courses for the Wim Hof method. And I was so excited and loved it so much, I wanted to become a Wim Hof instructor. And so that's why I started training. I started doing all the training for that. Meanwhile, I kept working with what I was being taught through that and the other things I was studying. And little by little, I started to heal more and more and more.
Yeah.
And then so by the time about 8 months had passed, most of my symptoms had resolved.
Yeah, healer, heal thyself.
Right.
First
and then
heal
so I'm
yourself,
going back
and
to the
then, yeah.
doctors, and all they can say is, we don't understand. How is this happening? We don't understand. I'm like, all I can tell you is because I didn't understand really yet either. And that was the thing. I was like, I don't know. I just started doing some different things. I started doing some meditation. I started doing some breath. I started doing some cold exposure, started doing some cold showers. And that started to
I
change me.
forgot about that you do the ice bath stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
We
I'd
just
forgotten
did one
about
the other
that.
day. We did one. So we have a friend who owns a yoga studio, and part of her training is she has her students. They bring us in, my wife and I. She's also a Paco, a priest, and we come in and we usually have a ceremony with them. So we just had one the other day. And the way we do ice baths is more like the shaman's bath is kind of what we call it. So we have everybody take like a sunflower or a flower, we'll bring flowers for them. And then everybody blesses that flower, sets their intention in the flower, floats that in the tub. And then I instruct. Then I have people come in, I teach them a little bit about their breath. I have them get into the tub. The first 40 seconds, you're just overcoming, balancing your nervous system. Then you spend about a minute, you're releasing. You're using the divine intelligence of the water to release any heavy energy, or in our tradition we call hucha.
Right.
Compressed condensed light. And you're not pushing it away, you're not shoving it away, you're lovingly letting it go. Through your body heat, you're giving to the water. And then after you give to the water for about a minute, I ask you to reverse the flow. I ask you then to drink in the divine intelligence of Mother Water. Let that intelligence, I have you set the cue in your mind. I'm opening all of my pores like little mouths or eyes and drawing in this energy. So it's a very deep kind of cleansing. It's almost like what I consider like a shamanic baptism, because it's very life-changing.
Well, getting back to the breath part, I could just imagine myself just going,
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. I mean, because you get into cold water, that's the first thing that happens is cold shock. That's a cold shock response. But we train ourselves first. So I usually have people, if they're new to it, train them a little first. And it's all about extending the breath. And that's something, getting back to the breath, that's essentially what I learned about the breath in the beginning as I didn't realize it at first. But as I continued, what was happening is I was balancing my nervous system. I was healing my nervous system. The breath didn't heal my lungs, it healed my brain and my nervous system is what happened. And the reason is when you breathe, and we were talking earlier about non-diaphragmatic breathing, when you use your diaphragm, there is a plethora of things. There's a cascade effect in the body that happens. And science is just catching up now about really what the deep intelligences of the body are, being the fascia, the lymphatic system, the glymphatic system. These are all connected and intertwined with everything in the body.
Yeah.
So it's the primary intelligence of our being, but our direct connection to it is through the nervous system, and it's widely overlooked. Like, shouldn't we all be taught how to breathe? Shouldn't everyone be taught how to properly regulate the nervous system?
well, a lot of current Western medicine is finally catching up to what the healers knew 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, well, how I usually put it is science is catching up to what mystics have always known.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's totally it. So that's kind of where it all began for me with the breathing, was with that, through my own healing, going through that, and then learning. Then I started to learn more. I really was starting to understand and learn more about the nervous system, so I went deep into that. I started studying neurology, started studying the effects of breathing on your nervous system, and it's still a hole that keeps getting bigger because there's more and more science. More science is finally catching up to things that were always known. Just maybe there wasn't language to explain them.
Right.
Like we
There
mentioned
wasn't
earlier.
a test for it.
No, right. And we were just talking about metaphysics before, like what is metaphysics? Well, metaphysics is physics that science doesn't recognize yet. That's what
Yeah,
what it
it
is.
is.
So we
Yeah.
call it meta because, the things that have been considered, woo-woo are now finally becoming understood as
Like
real
quantum
therapy.
physics.
Right, right.
Yeah,
right. That's a real thing. That's a real field of study. And what is
Yeah.
that doing? That's explaining like energy healing. It's explaining
Yeah.
what it is. It's explaining the understandings that the ancient Inca understood about light, about how things work, about how the universe is designed and how it works. And that's something that I've learned now. So coupling that, what's happened is I've become like a bridge. I'm a bridge in between. I'm very much a spiritualist. I'm into spirituality. I'm a shaman. I love to connect with spirit, and I love to use energy and spirit to help people heal. But also I'm very much into the scientific aspect of it as well. So I use the two forms of language and kind of bring them together because there's a gap. There's a bridge that happens there. So when you're trying to explain, like say a spiritual kind of practice, at the core of that, if we look at it more from a physical standpoint, what is that? It's nervous system tuning is what it is. So like in our tradition, one of the first exercises we're taught about energy management is something called Saman Chakui,
Yep.
which means Father's Reign. Or another way, so in a more modern clinical sense, I would say it's a body scanning technique where you're using your intention and ability to visualize to move energy through your body. So that means it doesn't have to be one way or the other. It can be both ways, right? So what that does is I open up the ability then to communicate with more people. Because some people don't want, as soon as you start mentioning spirituality or anything like that, they get a little spooked and freaked out. And you gotta watch your audience. So I try to use a type of language that is applicable to everybody. Which isn't easy. That's actually quite difficult.
He's got it.
It's more difficult than most people would think, I believe.
Well, that and that is amazing. The healing aspect that you're coming and bringing in the science.
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't want to hear. The minute they hear woo woo, they're like that. But as soon as you can say science, that's very important.
Right.
That you can bridge that. And it sounds like you're breathing fine.
Yes. So yeah, I've recovered. Do I have any symptoms? Maybe a little, but I can outbreathe anybody I know as opposed to where I was. So yeah, I've recovered like vastly. So that was kind of the beginning of everything, and then I started learning and doing more and more. And then my wife and we started doing open events where we're doing sound healing with breath and meditation and shamanic work and putting those all together.
Light and sound heals.
Right.
So are you currently doing any teaching?
Yes. So what I'm kind of just focused on doing right now is I have a Sunday group that gets together every Sunday on Zoom at 10 a.m. So it's kind of like it's been for about the past year and a half or so. It's like church for shamans. So it's our like Sunday gathering for people who are into the woo-woo is kind of what it is. But along with that, I interlace a lot of the more modern technology mixed with ancient human technology. So I mix these things kind of together. And what's happened is I've actually developed something that I've been working with actually with the Cleveland Clinic to try to create something of like connected with alternative forms of healing that can be used in a clinical setting, and that's called NRT, or neurorespiratory technology. And so I work with them with that. They've asked me, so I'm part of a study, because this is kind of, we have to jump ahead now into like the next part of it. So after all that and all that healing, in November 2nd, 2024, it was a normal Saturday, early morning, and my wife and I were actually hired to go out to Mohican that day to do a celebration of life for a woman who had tragically lost her son in a train accident. He was hit by a train. So we were going out there. We had everything set up. I had everything ready. I was going to do a specific type of despacho for it and everything. An aya despacho. It's like a soul despacho. We're all set up for it. It was about 11 a.m. At that time, Mary was my wife. She was working at a cold plunge facility nearby, and she was just going to be there for a little while. But while she was gone and I was getting everything ready, I had these really amazing, strong pains in my back. And I'm like, what is that? It felt like they were like near my kidneys. I didn't know what was going on. And I was just like, okay, maybe, I'm healthy and everything's okay. I don't really know. So I go into the shower, and while I'm in the shower, it gets really, really intense. I end up having to like crawl out of the shower, and I crawl into my room, and I lay on my bed. And I lay there, and it becomes so intense. It's the most intense pain I've ever still to this day felt in my life. And normally, with pain and things like that, I can kind of move into a meditative state and kind of separate from my body or calm it down or bring energy in to, help this. But it was so intense, I couldn't do anything. All I could do was pray. So I just started to, in our tradition, call it haiwa. I started to, it was natural. I just started to ask for help, essentially, from spirit. And I just laid there, and I thought for sure I was going to die or something, and then it just kind of eased up. And I was like, something's really wrong. Maybe I should call 911. And I'm thinking, well, how are they going to get to me? I'm naked, I'm behind a locked door, and I have a pit bull. Like, how is this going to work? So I'm like, maybe I should try to crawl over there, get underwear on, and just crawl into the front yard and call 911. So, but it all kind of eased up by that point. I got my underwear on, I went out into the living room, and we have this beautiful red light set up. It's like a near infrared system that we use. And I just put that on me, and I waited for my wife. I knew she'd be home in less than 20 minutes. She comes in, walks in the door, looks at me, and she goes, "What's going on?" And I said, well, I've just felt the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. What automatically sends a red flag to her, because I never talk that way. She's seen me beat, like I had an exploded appendix, and it didn't phase me or anything like that. And so for me to say that, she's like, wow, something must really be wrong. So I'm like, we're going to have to cancel this thing with this woman. I feel terrible. Like, I might have to go to the hospital. I don't know what's going on. And I was like, I don't know. Let me get him go to the bathroom. I get up and go to the bathroom, and on my sides, I have like this stippling. I have this, it looks like I'm internally bleeding. I have these little bruises all over my sides. And I'm like, that ain't good. We got to go. So I'm like, let's go. Let's go right to the emergency room. So I go there on my own power. We go there to the emergency room. They take me in. I have good blood pressure, and my vitals are okay and everything. And they take me back, and I tell them what's going on. And they're like, oh, maybe you have GERD or kidney stones. I'm like, no, I don't think so. My wife's mother comes, kind of sitting with her. That gave me time to meditate and go into my body. And I have a very deep level of interoception. I can feel. I went in, and I could tell there's something wrong with my aorta. And I tell them there's something wrong with my aorta. And they just kind of laugh at me. They're like, I can read them sort of. They're thinking like, what's this bald-headed, bearded weirdo? What's he talking about? How would he know such a thing? He can't know that. 6 hours goes by. I'm in the emergency room for 6 hours. They lose my blood. All kinds of things happen.
Oh, jeez.
And then finally, the symptoms get a little worse. I get pain in between my shoulder blades, and I vomit. And then they're like, okay, well, maybe we should do a CT. I'm like, no kidding. Maybe we should.
Oh, my gosh.
And the doctor comes in real time. They take me back there. The doctor watches in real time. And as it turns out, I was having a aortic dissection. So essentially, that's the inner layer, the inner wall of your aorta splits, and blood starts to flow in between the inner layer, the intima, and the next layer. And it starts to create what's called a false lumen. And so not only was I dissected a little, I was dissected from the root of my aorta, where it connects right above the valve, over the arch, all the way down into my legs.
Oh my goodness.
So they were terrified because, you have a less than 1% chance of survival of that. But they didn't know
anybody else
They didn't
would.
know they were dealing with me, I break those rules. So they were so I ended up getting wheeled back to the room. My wife is crying, her mom's holding her. There's now 10 doctors in the room, and they're all very serious. I'm like, uh-oh. Because I didn't know about the dissection yet. And then they start to tell me, this is very serious and this and that. So they're getting me ready. They're getting the life flight ready to pick me up. And while they're there, I could just feel, I'm an empath. So I'm picking up on everyone's fear, and they're so afraid. So my wife is like, it was just so strange. She's like, the way the light came through you into the room. I was like, I just want you to know I thank you all so much for helping me and working on me. And I want you to know that everything's going to be okay. And the one male nurse, me and him were having conversation during that whole time. He's very empathic too. And he just kind of looks at me, he goes, hey man, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, I ended up getting life-flighted from one hospital downtown to the Cleveland Clinic, of course, the greatest place you could go for something like this. And I get wheeled right into surgery. And I ended up having a 7-hour surgery, complete with out-of-body experience, and I would call a near-death experience, because for 62 minutes of that open-heart surgery, they actually stop all of your flow, all of your circulation. And at that point, I ended up having a really deep kind of spiritual connection with God during that time.
Like
so-
an NDE?
Yes, I would describe it. I already astral travel, so it's kind of normal for me to do that, but this was something that was beyond any of my control. There was no control, and it took me beyond any awareness of my being or my name, or it was just with spaciousness. And for me, what it felt like is I died. In that reality, I died. I got pulled out of that body, and then I pretty much floated in outer space for like 3,000 years until a soft whisper started to happen. And little by little, it felt like a tractor beam, and then there was more and more awareness coming in of like myself or a being or a body. And what it was my wife whispering to me. They had her in the recovery room, which is really abnormal, but she was there whispering to me, and they were saying, we need him to get him to focus on his breath. Do you think he can do that? She's like, yeah, he can do that. So she's whispering to me and slowly pulling me back. And I end up coming back into this body. I'm intubated. I'm breathing, and it sounds like a zipper because I'm breathing past the tube. And I wake up into this new world, into this new body, into everything's different. Everything's completely different. And it's not the first time I've did a quantum jump, and we're all doing it all the time. I'm aware of that, but this was one of the biggest quantum jumps ever. And for most people that sounds terrifying or terrible, but I got to tell you, it was one of the most beautiful blessings ever given to me. And not just that, it was even the recovery. So being in the hospital, I got to meet a lot of nurse practitioners and things. And what I noticed is just how everything felt. And I was like, how do people that don't have these amazing tools I have to regulate my nervous system and heal myself and shamanic medicines, how do they deal with this? They don't. So I find out later, and I'm part of a lot of online groups now for people that have had open heart surgery to help them learn how to handle these things, because it's very, very deep.
Well, in about getting ready to, calling into this wonderful conversation, could you talk us through a breathing exercise?
Absolutely. So one of my favorites is something that I kind of work with a lot. I call it 4-6 breathing. So 4 being a 4 count or 4-second inhale through your nose, and then a 6-second to 8-second exhale. And with that, I like to do like a soft kind of humming exhale, like a sigh.
Through the mouth. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's in through the nose
So
and
when you're
out through
doing
the
it,
mouth.
it kind of sounds like this. You'd breathe in through your nose. It's about 4, and then out about 6 or 8. And it starts off right there. I start with usually 3 like that. You're breathing in through the nose. Long sigh. And then you're softening. Your intention is to soften the shoulders, soften the jaw. And a cue that I use for most people is feel your feet. This starts to get you to ground. So you're breathing. We call that 3CB, or 3 conscious breaths. And what that is that's kind of like an emergency reset. If you're having a hard time, if your mind's running off, if everything's sucking and you wish it was different, think about it. When's the only time that we suffer is when we're disagreeing with reality. It's the only time I ever suffer. It happens still. But when
Try to fight with spirit, you know.
but when I become aware of that, the first thing I do is that I become aware. Awareness is the key. So that's like a method that I use too with the breathing. It's called the ABS method, which ABS sounds like, like a braking system in your car, like anti-lock brakes. What does anti-lock brake do? Stops you from skidding off the road. Well, this is the same idea with this, but the ABS stands for awareness, breath, and self-talk. So first is awareness. So like say you got something going on and you're having a hard time. The awareness steps in when you realize the story that you're telling yourself, the internal talk. What am I saying? Like, where I'm disagreeing with something. I'm suffering because of my thinking and what's going on. So once you have that awareness and then you can see it, now you begin the next step, and that's taking control of your physiology, stepping into your breath. And then we move into that 4-6 kind of breathing. And what this does, it takes over your physiology. It actually shifts your brainwave rate. Using that diaphragm begins to move blood, lymph, cerebral spinal fluid into your brain, starts to put the brain in a perfect position for neuroplasticity, the ability for new neurology to expand, and also neurogenesis, for new neurology to grow. So that's awareness, then breath. And then as you continue to breathe, now you start to use the technique of S, which is self-talk. It's basically the anti or reverse of what you're saying to. So if your mind is saying, oh my God, what's a common thing for most people, like abundance or money or something like that, I don't have enough. You're going the other way, and you're moving
So it would be
into-
like a perfect time to bring in an affirmation.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So the idea is to recognize first your story. If you don't recognize the story, you don't know what to say to back that up. So affirmations usually are, you can use, I don't usually use that term because that's kind of more without recognizing the first thing, which is the story. What's the story I'm agreeing to? The awareness of story. Then breath, and then self-talk. That's rewriting the story. So essentially what's happening is it's a neural repatterning that's happening. There's a neurological repatterning that slowly happens there, but the key is the breath. It doesn't work otherwise. You can't use it because the brain is not moving into a deeper state to be able to accept new words, new ideas. And the more you practice that, it becomes like a second nature. So you can even do it with things like if you find yourself complaining, we all do that. Next time you find yourself complaining, say, I notice that I'm complaining. And then you'll take those breaths. You'll start to breathe, 4, 6. And then you can start to do whatever it takes to reverse that. So if you're complaining, what's the perfect way to step out of complaining? Gratitude. And then that moves into another practice even. So gratitude can be, it starts off for most people, most gratitude practices are centered around what are you grateful for? So that's a mental picture. That's one form of energy. Most people stop there. But the next form of energy is embodiment, taking the mental idea of gratitude. How does it show up in my body? So it's somatic. Now you're moving into the feelings of the body. How do I experience gratitude? And then really paying attention to that, releasing the mental concept and just focusing on the vibration, the feeling, and then breathing into it. Because breath is light. It's actually frequency and vibration. Mm-hmm. And when you're allowing it to come into your body and you're connecting it into something like an emotion, like a feeling, you can expand it. And you start to expand. And then the idea then is to spread that through your entire body so all of your cells are vibrating. The 35 trillion little beings of the universe that is us starts to vibrate. And then the last step, which is really important, which most people never get to, that's radiance. That's radiating that energy from you, becoming that tuned energy in the field, holding that frequency in the field. And then what happens is you can be in a room, say, like we're in right now. And even as I'm talking, it's happening just on its own because I'm talking about it. I feel gratitude for you, both ladies. I feel gratitude for this microphone and its design and the table and the walls. And you can start to fill up the room with you. And in our tradition, we're taught Aini, which is divine reciprocity. It starts to come back to you. So now you're in a field of Aini. And it's really hard to be upset, sad, sick, any of those things when you're vibrating in that kind of field.
Well, we're definitely going to have to bring you back to, touch on other subjects, because you're
I'd
just
love
a
to.
wealth of
Well,
information.
why don't we have a part 2?
Yeah, well, we could.
Why don't we just do a part 2?
Okay, well, I
Hey,
can't
look, part
read.
2.
I can't read that from over here.
Yeah, I would love to
you
do a
need
part
way
2.
big markers.
So maybe we'll just have a part 2 ASAP.
Okay.
So why don't we wind up? Thank you for joining us.
Well, you got to do your cosmic traffic report first.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll fit that in
And now,
somewhere,
the
won't
Cosmic
we?
Yeah.
Traffic Report.
Yes, we'll fit that in somewhere, won't we? All right. Well, let's go ahead. For the Cosmic Traffic Report, this will be for the first 2 weeks of June. Want to apologize, everybody. Hopefully, you all enjoyed that blue moon in May 31st. We had a blue moon. Hopefully, you got your moon water out there and got everything set. Blue moons are fun. They happen twice a year sometimes. But upcoming in June, we're not going to have anything happening really moon-wise until June 14th, and that's going to be a new moon and that's going to be at 24 degrees Gemini at 10:54 p.m. Now, June 1st, Mercury will move into the sign of Cancer at 7:55 a.m. So the planet of communication will move into the sign of Cancer, which is a more receptive and emotional energy. So that'll bring more receptive energy for the month of June. We may find ourselves a little bit more likely to be argumentative, though, due to some stubbornness and being a little bit more mentally unchangeable with our states of mind. Our feelings may be a little bit more sensitive to our surroundings, and our sensitivities to other people's sufferings and our sympathies for other people will come out more in an emotional level for us overall. So this will be good for the Cancerians, it'll be rough for the Capricorns, and challenging for the Aries and the Librans. June 3rd, Mercury will square the planet Neptune at 4 degrees, and that's a Cancer-Aries square. And that'll be at 8:18 p.m. This transit brings in an unrealistic approach to love, romance, and marriage, as we may see things through rose-colored glasses. We may tend to be unrealistic and naive with others, and we may also be easily distracted. This is a good time for reading, writing, and creativity for this day, but we want to be careful of being overly and out of touch with reality, kind of distracted by our wanderings with our minds. This will be
isn't
challenging.
reality totally overrated?
It can be. It'll be challenging for the Cancers, the Aries, the Capricorns, and the Librans. June 9th, Venus will conjunct Jupiter. This will be at 25 degrees Cancer. This will be a very strong energy for the day, June 9th. At 3:58 p.m., this will go into the evening and into the next day. Now, this transit brings in charming and extravagant energy to the day, into the evening, and into the next day. And our focus may be more on security, family, home, enjoying good times, expansion and growth. It's a good time to start projects around our home, remodeling, refurbishing, redecorating, gardening, improvements of all types, self-improvement. Family and friends will be more enjoyable. We want to be planning vacations, and it's going to be just all around a good time to be planning family events. This also will be kind of a gambling aspect. I don't advocate gambling, but particularly for the Cancerians, this is the later Cancerians, this is a gambling aspect. Now, gambling doesn't have to be like money. It can be investment gambling, like when you're trying to want to invest something. But I tell people with that type of thing, listen to your own intuition. If you want to, like, say, I want to purchase a new car, or you want to buy a land property, those types of things are going to be good under this transit. So, it's
Following your gut's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, so this will be good for the Cancerians, a little rough for the Capricorns, challenging for the Aries and the Librans. Now, June 13th, Venus will enter into the sign of Leo. Venus loves to be in the sign of Leo. This is a placement for Venus because love will now become more romantic and idealistic. In general, we want to be more social, and this brings in a very kind of a lust for life kind of energy. We enjoy buying things, traveling. We're going to enjoy like high-end, being just around social people and enjoying kind of life, kind of cheers, let's have fun.
Yahoo!
Yeah, and it's also, it kind of brings in that flirting energy. We want to be around music. We want to be around people. We want to be around just, and we want to be helpful to others. We're going to want to share with others. We want to share fashion. We want to share with people, kind of uplifting people. So I really love that energy. This will be great for Leo. It'll be a little rough for the Aquarians and challenging for the Tauruses and the Scorpios. So that'll be it for June, the first 2 weeks of June, and that's the Cosmic Traffic Report.
All right, well, we'll move on to my animal. I chose cricket for today.
All right.
And it's like, while I can find the incessant drone of crickets annoying at times, fun fact, crickets don't make their sound with their hind legs. They actually make the sound by rubbing a stiff-veined wing against the membrane part of the opposite wing to make that sound. There's no getting around the fact that this vocal creature is found in lore around the world, except in Hawaii, where the cricket has evolved to be silent as protection from predators. Another fun fact that I just learned too. My take on the cricket is that cricket arrives with the energy of voice, expression, and movements. Its presence is small but unmistakable. Even hidden in darkness or tucked away in the grass, cricket announces itself clearly, reminding you that your voice carries power even when you are not fully seen. This energy encourages you to use your own voice rather than shaping yourself around the comfort of others. Cricket sings its own song without apology. It does not wait for permission to speak, create, or express itself. There is a call there to stop shrinking yourself to avoid judgment or being silenced from those who are uncomfortable with your truth. At the same time, cricket understands caution. It knows when to remain hidden from those who would harm or suppress it. This is not cowardice, but discernment. Recognizing that not every environment is safe for authentic expression. There is wisdom in knowing when to speak loudly and when to protect your energy quietly. Cricket also carries movement and readiness. There is very little hesitation in its energy. When the moment comes, it hops to it. Oh God, I just derailed my train of thought here. Cowardice, but discernment. Okay, recognizing that not every environment is safe for authentic expression. There is wisdom in knowing when to speak loudly and when to protect your energy quietly. Cricket also carries movement and readiness. There's very little hesitation in its energy. When the moment comes to hop to it, the spirit encourages curiosity and willingness to move forward when what calls you rather than endlessly waiting for certainty. Beneath all of this is a subtle thread of good fortune and spiritual companionship in many traditions, especially within Chinese culture. A cricket living in the home, sometimes in a cage, is considered lucky and protective. Cricket energy often carries the feeling that unseen support, guidance, or blessings is closer than you realize. Traditionally, cricket symbolizes joy, intuition, prosperity, and spiritual vibration. Its song has long been associated with raising energy, clearing stagnant emotional space, and creating harmony with the environment around it. Cricket teaches the importance of vibration, not only in sound, but in the energy you carry into the world. Its voice is not forceful, yet it travels great distances. In this way, cricket reminds you that small, consistent expressions of truth can have far-reaching effects. There is also a strong connection between cricket and intuition. Because crickets are more often heard than seen, they are linked with subtle awareness and the unseen world. Their appearance can signal heightened sensitivity, inner knowing, and trust in instincts that cannot always be logically explained. Across different traditions, cricket has also become associated with abundance, prosperity, and good luck. In parts of the world where crickets are kept as pets, they are seen not only as companions, but as spiritual bringers of harmony and fortune. Cricket energy is deeply connected to cycles of transformation as well. Themes of death, birth, and reincarnation echo through its symbolism, reflecting the constant movement between endings and beginnings. This spirit understands that growth often happens through sudden leaps rather than slow, predictable steps. That same leaping quality gives cricket an association with quantum shifts, moments where progress seems to happen all at once after long periods of stillness. Cricket reminds you that transformation does not always move in straight lines. At its heart, cricket is joyful. Its song fills warm nights with life and presence, encouraging playfulness, expression, and connection to the simple act of being alive. And of course, there's always the shadow side of everything. And when cricket energy becomes imbalanced, the very voice meant for expression may become silenced. Fear of judgment, rejection, or criticism can lead to a shrinking inward, withholding thoughts, creativity, or emotions that need to be shared. At times, this energy may swing toward inertia. Despite cricket's natural readiness to leap forward, there can be periods of lethargy, hesitation, or feeling emotionally stuck. Goals remain imagined rather than pursued, and inspiration loses momentum before action is taken. The opposite imbalance can also occur. Instead of stillness, there may be constant motion without direction, jumping rapidly between ideas, projects, or passions without grounding deeply into any of them. Cricket's leaps become scattered rather than purposeful. There may also be difficulty with focus or restlessness that makes sustained attention challenging. Sensitivity, which is normally a gift of intuition, can become overwhelmed. Small irritations begin to feel much larger than they truly are, creating emotional exhaustion or defensiveness. In some cases, cricket energy can become overly independent, resisting support or companionship out of fear of being vulnerable or loss of control. The voice that was meant to connect instead becomes isolated. Balance returns when cricket remembers that its song was never meant to compete with the noise of the world. It simply needs to be genuine. When grounded in authenticity, cricket teaches that even the smallest voice can change the atmosphere around it.
Interesting. I know Robbie Robinson, on his one album, he played crickets, but they played in slow motion, the sound of the crickets, and it actually sounds like a symphony.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
When he
I
played
saw that.
Robbie Robinson, the songs from the Red Road. Yeah, it was amazing. He had a track, it was crickets. It's amazing. So anyway, yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're going to wind things up to this.
Well, I realized there was one thing we missed with our guest is how to contact you.
How to contact me. Okay, so most of the work I'm doing currently is kind of run through Facebook, so you can find me right at my name, Don Antonio Qorianti on Facebook. I also have a YouTube channel, and that's under Chronic Wellness Technologies. Those are the two primary things right now I have working. I'm still kind of building a website. I had one before, but now there's a new one being built. So that's pretty much how I work with people, and you can go ahead and find me on there. If you come onto Facebook in there, you can also message me, and you can get into the free Sunday meetings that are on Zoom, 10 a.m.
Excellent. Okay. And we will have you back for a part 2.
I can't wait. I'll come back as many parts as you want.
All
Fairy
right.
Godmothers.
All right.
A lot sooner than you think.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks for joining us at Fairy Godmother's Pod of Wisdom and Knowledge. I'm Reverend Elizabeth Howell.
I'm Reverend Cynthia, and y'all come back.